And thank you for joining us on day one of TIA's Network of the Future conference right here in Dallas, Texas. Joining us now is Todd Rytting. He's the CTO of Panasonic North America. And Todd, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I had the pleasure of hearing your keynote just a moment ago at the TIA 2014 conference. First of all, how'd you feel about the keynote and how'd you feel about the audience?
The audience is great. I've been to several other TIA meetings in the past, and I have a great sense of respect, and they were all eating lunch, so they were happy.
Now, of course, you touched on the Internet of Things. You talked about large items as far as the Internet of Things goes, cars, airplanes. What are some of the smaller items that Panasonic's associated with in the Internet of Things realm?
Well, people don't realize that we do the big stuff as well, and so we tell people about that. But for example, Panasonic has been doing home energy management systems for probably 10 or 15 years. And so home security systems that connect to your cell phone, we've been doing that for a lot longer in Japan than it's existed here. So we do about everything you would normally expect in the Internet of Things as far as residential appliances, home management, things like that. The only question is, where does it occur? Where is the business? Is it in Japan? Is it in the United States? Is it in Europe? And there's different market needs for different places. And so
you also talked about some of the hurdles, challenges, and let's talk about home energy management systems.
Okay.
Since you mentioned it, what are some of the challenges there?
Well, in the talk I mentioned how there was this incredible emphasis and activity in 2009-2010 around home energy management, which is also solutions have existed for a long time, but it's never really taken off. It's always been like a rich person's toy, for somebody who wants to spend $20,000 on a $2 million house. But for the majority of homeowners, it's always been, do I invest $500 or $1,000 to basically save the cost of a pizza a month? And that's where in the United States it really hasn't taken off, primarily I believe because the value to the consumer isn't demonstrated. They can't, if you're just going to shave $5 off the cost of your electricity each month, it's not enough motivating value to the normal homeowner to want to install that stuff. Now, as energy prices go up, that'll change. But right now in the United States, we're kind of a little bit backwards as far as our approach to energy management in residences. And we have the technology, we know how to do it, but getting adoption inside the United States is a challenge.
Now, you also mentioned in your keynote address about creating value from the information gathered rather than just focusing so much on the connectivity issue.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we can connect. We especially at TIA, the member companies here know how to connect better than anybody else. And so as I go around and talk to people, and especially inside Panasonic and outside, often the discussion revolves around, well, how am I going to communicate? What kind of wireless technology do I use to get it from my device or product and get it through the cloud and all that kind of stuff? You shouldn't even start there, because you can assume that you can connect, because there's so many ways of connecting wirelessly and wired. That's not a problem anymore, because there's all these solutions to help you take care of that. The challenge is, what are you going to do with the information? What information do you collect? For example, we did a project with managing the battery storage in an apartment building on the other side of the world. And they were acquiring a lot of data that they just didn't even know what to do with, terabytes of data. But it was just sitting there. Nothing was happening with it. And so trying to figure out what to do with the information and how to turn that into value, I think that that's a place where innovation can take over. For example, in the United States, I believe that if we innovated in how we present the information to the person, to the homeowner, to the homemaker, and give them something other than just energy savings per month, maybe there's value in deciding how to integrate energy management with home security. And maybe there's value in integrating home security, smart home functionality, and you're combining different pieces of a larger pie to create a value that might be compelling to somebody to actually invest in it. And so, but it's the information that people will look at, and how do you present it to them? Is it just a number or a dial or a bar graph, or is there some other more creative way we can take the information and let people change the way they behave by it?
Todd, I was talking to your colleague Vicki Obenchain, and she talked about the need for Panasonic to focus on the end user and and what they need and what their wants are,
Agreed.
instead of focusing simply on the technologies that enable them to do what they need to do. And I thought that was an interesting parallel to a conversation that we had right before this filming about the challenge that you have not only with the technology development but with the assimilation into other cultures. Japan's an area that Panasonic is immersed in. And again, you have challenges not only with introducing your technology, but also introducing yourself to their culture. Tell me more about that.
Well, let's take that in pieces. The first piece is introducing technology. And we have the ability to make really cool stuff. And Panasonic makes exceptionally high quality products. We can also make exceptionally high products that nobody needs or uses if we want to. And so we have the ability to make things that far outstrip the user's ability to actually use it or consume it. If you have a point and shoot camera, for example, how much of the functionality do you really know how to use? I mean, all that stuff is built in there and all that capability is in there, but most people they just push the button and shoot. Maybe they'll turn it to video mode or sports mode, and that's about it. And so that kind of attitude is prevalent in this kind of an industry, and that there's a lot of functionality that we know how to make, but how do you turn that into value that somebody actually appreciates? And so that's one of the challenges. And when you talk about crossing cultures in country to country, for example, Panasonic sells in India, and a product they make for India, for example, it could be as simple as a hairdryer, would be designed differently for people in India than it would be for people in the United States. And the biggest difference is not necessarily language, but it's the way people behave, it's their culture, it's the way they were brought up. And needing to understand the differences in the different cultures is more important than understanding the language or the geography or the currency. It's the culture that makes us who we are. And so understanding the culture in the community that you're trying to sell to is incredibly important. And if you don't do that, then you're just selling something to somebody and you're not even listening to them, and that's a mistake.
Todd, I'll ask you one more question. What's your projection for the near future for Panasonic?
What I see happening in Panasonic, especially here in Panasonic North America, is an expansion of what I talked about today, which are products that are still Panasonic. And Panasonic builds very high quality, high performance devices and electronics and pieces of equipment. But we are working on expanding the connectivity so that we can get at that information. And it's information that comes from those products that's really important to us, because then we can serve a broader customer. So I believe that you'll see that Panasonic is in a unique situation because we make so many things. We have hundreds of thousands of different products. And if we combine them in a unique way and collect information from them, present that information so it's of value to somebody, we're going to see applications that are unique and innovative, that solve real problems we're also investing time and energy into understanding our consumer and trying to figure out what their problems are, not so that we can give them the next version of an existing product, but so that we can give them a brand new product that solves a real need. And so you're going to see more of that from Panasonic.
Todd, as I mentioned before, it was a pleasure to listen to your keynote, and of course also a pleasure to have you in the TI Now studio. We hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. And thank you for joining, I'll shake your hand. Thank you for joining our coverage of TIA's Network of the Future conference. The Dell TI Now studio, as always, will be streaming live throughout the conference. You can view our live stream and all of our programming at tinow.org. So long.